Hey everybody, it's Andrew here, and welcome back to the channel. So, Democrats and Republicans finally did something on a bipartisan level, and this has both sides saying that the other side cracked. So, Republicans are saying Democrats cracked, and Democrats are saying Republicans cracked. Now, this dynamic has a lot of influence when it comes to things like getting Social Security benefits increased, getting that stimulus check for seniors that Bernie Sanders wants. So, in this video, we're going to discuss exactly what Congress just did and what that dynamic is. Are Democrats cracking or are Republicans cracking? And what could that mean going forward for Social Security benefits and that stimulus check that Bernie Sanders is fighting for? So let's discuss the details. But before we jump into it, as always, guys, do me a quick favor, hit like, hit subscribe, and share this channel with anyone who you think might find this helpful. This is a community for seniors, and my job here is to be a voice for you. So thank you so much for being a part of our community. And with that said, let's jump right into the news. Before we talk about what Congress just did, let's do a quick update on daily trending news. Now, one thing that's trending is this huge divide between Mitch McConnell and former President Trump. Now, we all know these two had a pretty strained relationship throughout Trump's presidency, and this really came to a fever pitch on January 6th. Now, both of these folks are jockeying for power, and if you're a Republican in the Senate, you're either Team Mitch McConnell or Team Donald Trump. And obviously, we know that with polls looking so bad for President Biden, there's a good chance that Trump ends up being the president again in 2024, and Mitch McConnell is jockeying for power. And what he's doing is, when it comes to these midterm elections coming up in November, Mitch McConnell is trying to get together enough Senate Republicans to run in November that don't like Donald Trump. That way, Mitch McConnell can maintain his influence in the Senate. And Donald Trump is doing the opposite. He's trying to get Republican senators in the Senate who want to get rid of Mitch McConnell. Now, obviously, it's hard to get rid of Mitch McConnell completely. He still has a few years left before he's up for re-election. But if Trump gets enough influence, Mitch McConnell could lose his seat as the Republican leader, currently being the Republican minority leader. And if they take control of the Senate, eventually he would be the majority leader once again. So this has massive implications on things going forward. Obviously, who's in charge has huge implications as far as what agendas get pushed and what legislation actually gets passed. So things like Social Security, SSI, Medicare expansions, that stimulus check that Bernie Sanders is fighting for seniors. All of these things will be influenced by who is in control. Obviously, we remember that former President Trump, he was more in favor of stimulus checks and things like direct stimulus to the American people, and Mitch McConnell, for the most part, didn't want to do that. That was something that those two really butted heads on. So this power struggle between Mitch McConnell and former President Trump could potentially have huge implications going forward. So let's take a quick look, guys. Let's see what the talking heads are saying regarding Mitch McConnell, former President Trump, and both of them jockeying for influence in the Senate. And then we're going to discuss exactly what Congress just did, what that dynamic is, did Democrats crack or did Republicans crack, and how that could influence things going forward, like Social Security and other benefits as well. So let's take a look, see what they had to say, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below.
Mitch McConnell, no secret, wants to be Senate Majority Leader again, and he sees Donald Trump, not the Democrats, as his chief obstacle. This tension is not new, but the midterm campaign calendar is bringing it into sharper focus as McConnell tries to block Trump allies in several big Senate races. McConnell wanted Maryland Governor Larry Hogan to run for Senate. Hogan last week said no. And McConnell wants Arizona Governor Doug Ducey to run. Ducey will decide soon, but is said by close friends to be leaning no. Both governors have a very dim view of Donald Trump, and vice versa. Jonathan Martin of the New York Times writes this of the McConnell strategy. It's all aimed at recapturing the Senate majority, but the election also represents what could be Republicans' last chance to reverse the spread of Trumpism before it fully consumes their party. Great reporters are back with us. And to that point, that is how McConnell sees it. He looks across the chamber at the House and sees the rise of the Trump allies, doesn't like it from a policy perspective, from a how they conduct themselves perspective, and he's worried that's going to come to him.
Yes, he's worried that's going to come to him, but let's be clear. His number one goal is getting the majority back and being majority leader. And a big part of why he doesn't like Trump and Trumpism is because he sees that as an obstacle to attaining that goal. I mean, there is a philosophical part of it, but it seems to be much more of the power part of it. And the reason is because he's lived this before. A different set of obstacles back when the Tea Party was big, but different, similar dynamics in that to win a Senate seat in a purple state, you need a candidate on the Republican side who appeals more to the middle. It's not the House. The districts are not drawn that way. That's just not the way it is. And so he has lived 2 cycles of not getting the majority back because he's had conservative, at that time it was Tea Party, this time there will be Trump-backed conservatives who can't win the state. That is the number one thing, and he is up against a former president who is making it incredibly personal. We all got emails from the Trump campaign last night specifically going after the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, asking for money, saying, let's try to get rid of Mitch McConnell. Not Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell.
Right. In a midterm election year where Republicans, you would think, knowing the wind is at their back, just figure out, settle our family feuds quietly and publicly.
Exactly.
But so this is what J. Mart writes in his piece in the Times. In conversations with senators and would-be senators, Mr. McConnell is blunt about the damage he believes Mr. Trump has done to the GOP. Privately, he has declared he won't let unelectable goofballs win Republican primaries. This is one of the reasons, Phil, he wants Governor Ducey to run in Arizona. Arizona could be, in 2022, what you mentioned, the Tea Party, what Missouri was back in 2014, where you get a candidate in a 50-50 state. Missouri's no longer 50-50. It wasn't even 50-50 then, really. It was starting to trend away. But you get a candidate in a state where there are enough Democrats, especially if the independents break. That's McConnell's worry as he pursues power. But Ducey's one of the guys Trump has gone after hard. The question is, do you personally want to deal with that?
And I think to some degree, perhaps he might not say it publicly, but I think Republicans might want to see that actually play out, right? They want to test that case. They want to see because, and J. Mart actually hits at this a couple of times in the piece in a very smart manner, of that will determine if Ducey runs and wins. That is a huge shot across the bow for Trumpism to where more Republicans might be willing to stand up and say some of the things that so many of them tell us behind the scenes but are terrified to say publicly. I think Dana hits at the most critical point here. You cannot overstate the lessons learned from Sharon Angle and Todd Aiken and that witch lady from Delaware, whatever. Christine O'Donnell. Because for McConnell, that informs everything he does. And you look at it, he's not going after all Trump-backed candidates, right? His willingness to accept, accommodate, and endorse Herschel Walker, I think, surprised some of us. But it's also reality. He looked at the numbers, he has the numbers, and realizes that's the best shot they believe they have in the state of Georgia to win, to knock off Raphael Warnock. When he looks around and sees other potential candidates, particularly the roster in Arizona, he says, I can't win that race, or I very likely may not win that race with that candidate. I need to figure out a way to get it out. This is what I'm going to do to try and make that.
Right, and so you look at this map. The Senate race is up in 2022, 34 seats up, 14 Democrat-held seats, 20 GOP seats. The Democrats are lucky. They're not defending any states that Trump won.
So obviously Mitch McConnell is concerned with 2 things. Obviously he wants to maintain the Senate Majority Leader position if and when Republicans take back control of the Senate, and he's also worried about the midterms. Part of this is personal. We know that feud between Trump and McConnell goes back for years, but at the same time, McConnell has been shown to be willing to back Trumpism senators in states where they think that might be what's best to win those elections. But when it comes to more moderate states like Pennsylvania, swing states like that, Mitch McConnell said they are quote-unquote goofballs. He doesn't want these folks to win in the primaries and then have no shot in winning in the general elections, which would mean Democrats would maintain control of the Senate, if that kind of makes sense. So it seems like a combination of somewhat personal, somewhat strategic when it comes to the midterms, and also, most importantly to Mitch McConnell, maintaining his position as the Republican leader in the Senate. So that's what's happening, and again, that will have massive impacts going forward, mainly because, first of all, if Republicans take control of the Senate, Democrats will no longer be able to use budget reconciliation to get more stimulus packages done. Of course, at this point, stimulus packages have been on pause anyway, so we're not sure if really that's that much of an issue going forward. Secondly, also, the implication is if Trump ends up back in office, whether or not Mitch McConnell is the Senate Majority Leader could have a huge impact on future stimulus packages as well. As I mentioned previously in this video, former President Trump was more on board with things like the $2,000 stimulus checks, and Mitch McConnell was not. So if he has a Senate Majority Leader potentially that's more aligned with these ideals, that could potentially put us in a situation where the chance of getting more direct payments could be more of a possibility. Again, that's just in a situation if former President Trump ends up back in office again. So that's what's trending in the news. With that said, let's talk about this bipartisan deal that Democrats and Republicans just did, what exactly happened, and what this shows us as far as the power struggle between Democrats and Republicans, who potentially cracked, and what that could mean going forward for getting things done like Social Security benefits and that debit card for seniors that Bernie Sanders is pushing for. So all of this has to do with that stopgap spending bill that Democrats had to get done before Friday night to avoid a government shutdown. Now, this is something that was supposed to be done back in September, and they keep kicking the can down the road with these short-term bills that last a few weeks or a few months instead of getting something done that lasts for an entire year like it's supposed to. And this is no different. This extension only lasts about 3 weeks, but basically the main thing here is they're working on a bipartisan package that they seem to be agreeing on to fund the government for an entire year, and the details of that have some people saying that Republicans cracked and some people saying that Democrats cracked. Now that dynamic is going to give us a good insight as to who has more influence in Congress. Are Democrats folding and giving Republicans more of what they want, or are Republicans folding and giving Democrats more of what they want? This could kind of set the tone for what we could expect to happen next. Are Republicans kind of folding and leaning into what Democrats want? Could that put us in a position where maybe they could actually vote for a stimulus package or increasing Social Security benefits? Well, the interesting thing here is this bill passed by a huge majority. This passed with a 65 to 27 vote in the Senate, meaning it had a huge majority, way more than the 50 or even 60 votes needed to get this done. And a lot of Republicans voted for this as well. So this is a genuine bipartisan bill, just a short-term bill, but we expect about the same amount of Republicans to vote for the full year funding as well in just a few weeks. Now, based off of the details of this bill, it looks like Democrats are going to get things like overall broader spending across the board, including increased funding to the Social Security Administration. Now, that bodes well for things like the customer service experience, things like making sure employees are getting raises, and making the website more user-friendly. So that's good as far as a customer service perspective. But that additional funding for Social Security is not going to lead to an increase in benefits. That extra funding is just to fund the administration for their daily operations. So that's overall good news. Not amazing news when it comes to getting direct payments for seniors, but it will help make the process more seamless. Now, as far as things Republicans are getting, mainly what they're getting is an increase in funding to the military and national defense. Now, Congress already overwhelmingly backed a $25 billion increase to President Biden's Pentagon funding request back in December. And originally, if you guys remember, President Biden was trying to dampen the amount we were spending on military with just a 2% increase year over year. And now it's looking like this could come in at closer to 5%. So on the one side, Republicans are saying that Democrats are cracking and giving in to this increase in spending when it comes to military, and Democrats are saying that Republicans are folding because they're willing to allow more spending across the board, things like spending on Medicare and the Social Security Administration. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. In your opinion, does it seem more like Republicans are cracking or Democrats? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. In my opinion, personally, not to pick sides here, but it looks like Democrats are kind of folding more towards Republicans, right? Because they made a big point to say, you know, with all the spending we're doing, with all the politicians saying that we don't have enough money to give more stimulus checks or increase Social Security benefits, the last thing we should be doing is spending more on the military. These are things that Democrats like President Biden and Bernie Sanders were saying. That was kind of a keystone argument they were making. And now they're basically doubling the amount of funding they're going to spend on the military. So in my opinion, with that being such a red line in the sand, and now they're doubling the funding to that, it kind of seems like Democrats are cracking more for Republicans. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, in my opinion, that's not the greatest news when it comes to getting things like Social Security increases, SSI, Medicare increases, and even that stimulus check that Bernie is fighting for, because it kind of looks like the more time goes on, the more Republicans continue to get their way. Now, half of you vote Republican and half of you vote Democrat. So in a sense, that could be a good thing. But when it comes to things we talk about on this channel, like expanding benefits across the board, these are things that really Democrats are fighting for, and having Republicans in power honestly lowers our chances of getting that done. So not the greatest news, folks, but in my opinion, this power struggle really kind of shows that Republicans' influence is kind of getting stronger and stronger, But again, one of the main things that's going to affect things going forward are those midterm elections in November. Will Democrats maintain control of the Senate and the House? And if they don't, will Mitch McConnell get his way and get enough Republican senators in the Senate that back him and don't back former President Trump, which again could have massive implications going forward if Trump ends up back in office. So folks, that's the update for today. These are the things we continue to monitor. What's going to happen with negotiations? Will Democrats get their way and increase benefits across the board? And will these things get done before those midterm elections in November, like a lot of experts are saying they should do? So guys, I will keep you updated as things develop. As always, I'll keep you updated on things like Social Security benefits, the Medicare expansion, and what's happening in politics and the economy as well. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching, and until the next video, take care and have a great day.